Okay, guys, I put out a video yesterday that primarily said home runs have gone up 25% from 2014 to today. And what I meant was they've gone up 25% in the home runs per game. The average per game home runs have increased 25% in the last 2 years. The argument that I kind of butted into was that maybe it's the baseball. And there was some talk about maybe testing that and how difficult it might be to test that. What I stated was that it's happening as a result of guys locating the fastball down and away because the pitch angles match closer to the swing angles of the bat coming through the zone. Now, I got a lot of pushback, and it was based on the fact that these pitch angles couldn't even be close. So this is James Shields. He's thrown the ball from just about a little bit below 6 feet. The bottom part of the strike zone would be roughly about 18 inches off the ground. At least some of the more average size guys to smaller guys are going to be at about 18 inches. I don't know if that's taken into account with this because it seems to be a constant 2 feet off the ground. Bottom line, though, is when this pitch is starting at 6 feet and it's going down to 18 inches off the ground, when we get to this point where it starts to enter the hitting zone, it's going to be going down at a decent rate. Did I overstate by saying that it was possibly up to as much as 20 degrees? Maybe. But I do know that when this pitch is going to be at the top part of the strike zone, just based on measuring a boatload of pitches at 90-ish miles an hour, when they're at the top part of the strike zone, they have about a 4-degree descent angle. And the more severe the pitch, or the lower the pitch goes, the more severe that angle is going to be. Now, I realize that there's probably some high-end math that I'm not doing in order to figure out what the actual angle is. But what my point is I don't want that to be lost over a technicality, but that seems to be what the case is here. Josh Tomlin, who's leading in home runs right now, given up. This is his four-seam fastball. Again, it's the average over August is the way I believe that this is done at Texas Leaguers. I'm not positive about that. But that angle is fairly severe when it's at the bottom part of the strike zone. 17 degrees, 18 degrees. I guess it depends on what pitch we're talking about exactly. What I stated was it was going to be about 3, maybe 2 to 5 degrees at the top of the zone. As it gets more towards the bottom, it's going to be about 6 degrees to maybe 10 degrees. And then as it gets towards the bottom of the strike zone, it's going to be closer to 20 at a max out. Now, one of the arguments was also that maybe the spin rate of the fastball is going to have a lot to do with it, and I would say that that's true. Spin rate's going to keep the ball airborne longer. It's not going to make it travel through the air faster necessarily, but it depends on the conditions. If it's with the wind, it might. If it's against the wind, I don't know if you've ever hit a 9-iron into the wind with a lot of backspin, but it doesn't help you cut through the wind. So it's going to have a different effect depending on what the conditions are. But when we look at Josh Tomlin's primary fastball, it's a cutter. And when he throws a cutter at the bottom part of the strike zone, it's fairly close to 20 degrees, at least in this, again, rough idea of what is happening with a pitch line. Ian Kennedy, who locates higher in the strike zone, so his average pitch is closer to 2 feet. His is not quite as severe, and so, it's going to be in that 12, 13, 14 degree range. I'm not sure that this even matters because my statement was very clear, and that is when the pitch enters the zone at the bottom part of the strike zone and it's heading downhill, and the swing line, which we know is heading uphill predominantly, and the example that I used was Chris Davis, who's going down, 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 and then up, 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 up. And when he gets to a pitch that's up here at the top part of the strike zone, he has 1 point in time because if we remember, his swing line was roughly 40-some degrees going uphill. But at the bottom part of the strike zone, where these fastballs that I'm talking about are living these days, that's where his swing line matches this pitch line. It really doesn't even matter what the exact line is because it depends on who the pitcher is, depends on who the hitter is, it depends on which pitch we're talking about. Jered Weaver's throwing about 82 these days, and I know his pitch is going to lose about 8 miles an hour just like everybody else's pitch by the time it gets to home plate. So it's losing some speed, but it's starting at 82. It's going to be at 70 whatever 4 by the time it gets to home plate. So we're not going to have a fairly severe downward angle by the time Jered Weaver's fastball gets to the bottom part of the strike zone. I'm saying that 20 degrees is not that far away. Now, if we start looking at other pitches, because I did bring other pitches into the conversation, even though my primary argument was about fastballs, when these other pitches are coming down, let's go back to Jered Weaver for a second. Where was he at? Jered Weaver's curveball at 69 is going to have a very severe downward angle. So I might have been understating when talking about pitches like that. But what I primarily said was that the pitches, when they're located down, have more of a downhill angle, and the swing line, has an uphill angle in almost every case. There's very few major league hitters who are even close to being flat. Most of them have, I'm going to say 13, 14, up to 24, 25 degree upward swing paths. That matches what this pitch is doing. That's my argument. Chris Young not throwing hard and throwing downhill from well above 6 feet. I'm just saying there's going to be an angle, and that angle is going to be fairly close to what the bats are when he locates down at the bottom. Zack Greinke, his two-seamer is going to have a little bit of movement down. What's that angle? It's pretty close to 20 degrees. That's just my argument. But the primary argument that I have is that pitches are going to be heading down when they're at the bottom of the strike zone. Bats are heading up. I don't think there's any argument that in the big picture that at least the big picture that I showed in my video, there is a significant difference in batting average and hard hit balls on the outside part of the plate. It really is that simple. And when we look at somebody in particular like Chris Davis, like I used, his are severe to the up and in area, having 1 in 53 being a plus fastball. So basic argument, fastballs heading down are going to have an angle that's close to the angle of the bat going up. Are they exact? Doubtful. But I know that they're a lot closer than guys hammered me for on the internet.